Y&R Spoilers Friday has witnessed countless separations and reunions, and continues to become the stage for a stormy story between three characters who are all too familiar with emotional struggles: Sharon, Phyllis, and Nick. Despite having tasted the bitterness of jealousy, betrayal, love, and forgiveness many times, this trio still cannot escape the vicious cycle created by their own emotions, hurts, and desires. In recent days, Sharon has gradually found peace within herself after a series of events. She tries to rebuild a new life, carefully covering up old wounds with a calm smile, devoted to her work at Crimson Lights, and attentive to her loved ones. For Sharon, the past with Nick is like a painful but valuable lesson, a love that has gone through many ups and downs, and she believes she is mature enough to overcome all the remaining echoes. However, that belief began to waver when she noticed Phyllis's increasingly frequent presence in Nick's life. Phyllis, after her failures and injuries in life, was also on her journey to self-healing. Although she was a strong, fiery, and somewhat reckless woman, deep inside, Phyllis always felt lonely and vulnerable. Many times, she told herself that she would not let the past repeat itself, that she would not let her weak desires pull her towards Nick anymore. However, fate seemed to always tease her, arranging for her and Nick to meet each other in the most sensitive moments, so that the old flame of love would smolder again, pushing both of them into ridiculous situations. Nick, with his generous and sincere nature, was always good at listening and comforting others. He knew that Phyllis needed a shoulder to cry on, and over the years, even though they had broken up, Nick had never truly closed the door of his heart to Phyllis. The two have shared many sweet, passionate, and bitter moments. Nick understands that there are still many things left unsaid between them, many problems that cannot be completely resolved, and it is not easy to completely let go. However, he also knows that he cannot hurt Sharon again. For Nick, maintaining balance between the important women in his life is never easy. It all started on a cool afternoon when Nick accidentally met Phyllis in the park. She was sitting quietly on a bench, her eyes distant, her face showing a hint of fatigue. Realizing Phyllis's loneliness, Nick approached, gently asked and talked to help her ease the sadness that was building up in her heart. It was simply a concern that came from the sincere feelings and responsibility of someone who had been deeply attached, but for Phyllis, every gesture of Nick had the power to make her heart flutter, making her feel a rare sense of security in the midst of an unpredictable life. In the quiet space of the park, when the yellow leaves fell silently, Phyllis unconsciously leaned her head on Nick's shoulder, looking for the comfort she had long lacked. Nick, with his familiar compassion, did not push her away, nor did he dare to go further. He just remained silent, gently embracing Phyllis, giving her a bit of human warmth in the cold winter day. At that moment, both of them clearly understood the boundary between the past and the present, between comfort and love, between the desire to hold on and the reason to let go. But fate always knows how to arrange the most awkward situations. Sharon, on her way to the park to breathe fresh air, happened to witness that cozy moment. From afar, she saw Phyllis nestled in Nick's arms, the man she had loved deeply, the father of her children, the one-time partner she had never been able to completely let go of. In an instant, all her newfound peace seemed to vanish. A wave of jealousy, hurt, and a little anger surged within Sharon, even though she tried to hide her emotions with a calm exterior. Sharon's sudden appearance made the atmosphere between Nick and Phyllis tense. Phyllis quickly stood up, her eyes confused, not daring to look directly at Sharon. Nick was equally confused, he felt Sharon's confused and painful gaze, but didn't know how to explain it. Even though he knew that the moment just now was just a moment of weakness, Nick couldn't help but blame himself for letting things get out of control. Sharon tried to regain her composure, walked towards them with a forced smile, trying to pretend that nothing had happened. But deep inside, a new wound had been dug into her heart, making all her efforts to heal, forgive, and rebuild trust more fragile than ever. She realized that, despite her efforts to let go of the past, her feelings for Nick were still intact, sometimes even burning brighter than before. That made Sharon wonder if she was really ready to accept Nick and Phyllis as just friends, or if deep down, she had never wanted to share her man with anyone. After that moment, the atmosphere between Sharon and Phyllis became heavy. The conversations that were previously full of goodwill and openness were now filled with suspicion and indifference. Sharon felt betrayed, even though her reason always reminded her that Nick and Phyllis were both adults, free to decide their own feelings. But Sharon's heart still ached every time she remembered the hug between the two of them, the gentle look Nick gave Phyllis that should have belonged only to her. Phyllis, clearly understanding the storms that had just arisen, could not help but torment herself. She blamed herself for letting her emotions overwhelm her reason, pushing everything into an awkward situation. She knew that Sharon had tried very hard to rebuild their relationship, and Phyllis herself did not want to destroy what they had worked so hard to build. But how could she extinguish her true feelings for Nick? How could she pretend that everything was just friends, when her heart always skipped a beat every time she was near Nick? Nick, who was standing between the two women, felt even more lost and helpless. He loved Sharon, admired her strength and selflessness. But he also could not deny Phyllis's special charm. Her boldness and passion made Nick's life always full of surprises and excitement. Facing reproachful and hurtful looks from both Sharon and Phyllis, Nick could only blame himself for not being decisive enough, for not being able to control his heart and actions. The following days in Genoa City, the trio's life became more suffocating than ever. Sharon was lost in thought, avoiding Nick and Phyllis whenever possible. Phyllis threw herself into work, trying to keep her distance from Nick so as not to hurt Sharon again. As for Nick, he struggled with the torment in his heart, not knowing what to do to mend everything that had broken down. The fragile peace between Sharon and Phyllis, which seemed to have been built after many storms, is now threatened by old wounds that have not yet healed, by the fear of betrayal, and by human weakness before the temptations of the past. Friendship, love, forgiveness. All are tested by an unexpected moment, an incomplete hug but enough to touch all three hearts. Where will this complicated love story go? Can Sharon overcome her jealousy and forgive Nick and Phyllis? Is Phyllis strong enough to step back, give up happiness to Sharon, or will she continue to fight for the love she once lost? And Nick, what will he choose when both women deserve to receive his whole heart? In Genoa City's world of intrigue, temptation, and secrets, everything can change in the blink of an eye, and the most broken hearts are the ones most vulnerable to being broken again. Amidst the constant emotional undercurrents in Genoa City, Sharon has always been a model of calmness, self-control, and the ability to control herself in the face of life's unexpected events. Having experienced many ups and downs, Sharon deeply understands the value of silence and the power of emotional control. She has learned to hide her hurt, suppress her sadness and jealousy so as not to disrupt her life and the lives of those she loves. Sharon observes everything with a gentle but equally sharp gaze, always seeing through the masks that the people around her are wearing. That is why, even though she feels insecure and a little hurt when seeing Nick continue to open his arms to protect Phyllis, Sharon still keeps a calm appearance, without a word of blame or anger. Sharon herself knows that everyone has a reason for their choices, and sometimes, helping an ex is not blameworthy. However, deep down, Sharon still couldn't deny the vague unease when she saw Nick, the man who used to be her whole world, once again caught up in Phyllis's troubles. There was a time when Sharon thought she had truly moved on from Nick, could see him as a friend, a father to her children, but every time Nick defied everything for Phyllis, Sharon's heart ached with a dull ache, like a reminder that the past had not closed. However, Sharon also understood very well who Phyllis was. Even though there were times when the two were merciless opponents on all fronts, love, work, family, Sharon had never truly hated Phyllis. She saw in that woman's eyes a weariness, uncertainty, even despair. Phyllis was really having a hard time, and Sharon was sensitive enough to realize that, even if she herself did not want to admit it. Many times, Sharon wondered if she should let go completely, let Nick save Phyllis, because everyone needs a shoulder to lean on when they are weak. But what Sharon didn't want most was to let jealousy overwhelm her reason, and then make her lock herself in the painful cycle of the past. Sharon chose to stay silent, reminding herself that even if Nick helped Phyllis, he was still the father of her children, and would always have a certain place in her heart for Sharon. With maturity and tolerance, Sharon dismissed all doubts, continued to live with her inherent calmness, but deep inside, loneliness and insecurity were still smoldering, waiting to explode. Amidst Sharon's worries, life in Genoa City became even more turbulent with new storms coming from Billy. Being a passionate but also impulsive man, Billy was always an unpredictable force. In recent days, Billy has fallen into a state of confusion and loss of control when he is constantly attacked by Victor. Sally, the woman who holds an important part of Billy's heart, watches his every action and every smallest expression with constant worry. Sally understands Billy very well, a person who is always torn between reason and emotion, between great aspirations and the ghost of past failures. Sally knows the reason why Billy is disappointed, even angry to the point of being willing to retaliate against Victor at all costs. Victor's dominance has many times turned Billy into a lost person, hurting himself and those around him. But what Sally worries about most is that Billy's instinct for revenge and desire to prove himself may drag him back into a spiral of destruction, especially when Adam, who originally disliked Billy, may be willing to carry out a smear campaign to satisfy Victor's wishes. Sally understands the pain of being overwhelmed and pushed into a weak position. She had seen Billy humiliated and belittled by more powerful people many times, and she knew that each time, a fierce anger arose within Billy. But Sally also understood that if he let his anger control him, Billy would become his own worst enemy, destroying the opportunities he had worked so hard to build, and leading to the collapse of Abbott Communications, the brainchild that Billy loved the most. Sally tried to be by Billy's side, becoming a support for him to keep his balance in the storm. She often reminded Billy of his bigger goals, of the new business project that the two of them were building, of his desire to rise up and regain his rightful position in the media industry. Sally persistently encouraged him, shared every idea, every strategy, hoping to help Billy focus on positive things, instead of being caught up in a hopeless rage. But Billy was a man of emotions. Sometimes, Sally's advice was like a gentle breeze before a big storm, not enough to calm the waves in Billy's heart. Sometimes he nodded, promising to restrain himself, not to let his impulsive nature dominate. But just one challenging look from Victor, one sarcastic innuendo from Adam, all his determination disappeared. There was always a rebellious part in Billy, a deeply wounded pride, that made him never back down from any threat, even if the price was his own future. Sally watched Billy's every step, every lost look, every unusual action. She realized that no matter how hard he tried, if Billy could not overcome himself, no one could save him from the pit of self-destruction. Sally knew that if Adam's smear campaign was launched, if Victor continued to put pressure on him, Billy would again become a victim of blind revenge. At that time, all of Sally's efforts would be like a drop in the ocean. Every night, Sally tossed and turned, trying to find a way to protect Billy without hurting herself. She knew that if she lost Billy to the spiral of revenge, she would lose the man she loved and trusted. But more than anyone, Sally understood that Billy needed to overcome himself, to face the darkness in his heart. In the coming days, Genoa City could witness an escalation of conflicts, hidden struggles between large and small forces. Sharon would continue to live in patient silence, hiding all her emotions to keep the peace for her family and herself. Phyllis would try to overcome difficulties with her inherent strength, even though beside her, Nick was still struggling between his old love and his new love. Billy, with his inner turmoil, will have to face the biggest choice of his life, either go deeper into the path of revenge, or stop and listen to the voice of reason and the love that Sally persistently gives him. These emotional undercurrents will not stop, they will continue to roll, pushing the characters into new challenges, painful choices but also rich opportunities for growth and forgiveness. Sharon's silence, Sally's patience, Billy's torment, and Phyllis's moments of weakness all will blend together, creating a picture of life full of nuances, where love, hatred, trust, and betrayal are always intertwined, testing each heart in its own, most intense and profound ways. Genoa City has never been a peaceful land for souls thirsting for power and hearts that are easily moved. Every day here opens new pages full of surprises, and on that afternoon, the atmosphere in society seemed to become more special when the revolving doors slowly gave way to Amanda's reappearance. She entered like a cool breeze but with the hidden power of a storm, causing all eyes to stop for a moment. Amanda's presence was never simply that of an old friend returning. She always exuded a self-possessed, calm air, a mixture of elegance and the temperament of an experienced woman who had gone through enough storms of the legal world as well as of the heart. Society, the place that was the center of relationships and rumors, was immediately stirred by this unexpected appearance. Amanda did not rush to find anyone, nor did she need to make a loud announcement, simply her appearance made the atmosphere more bustling than usual. Familiar faces at the next table began to whisper, passing along bits and pieces of news about the return of the woman who had left a strong mark on this city. Some were happy, others were uneasy, worried about the true purpose behind her decision to return. Not long after, news of Amanda's return quickly spread throughout Genoa City. Devon, who had many unforgettable memories with Amanda, was one of the first to receive the news. At first, there was surprise, then an indescribable feeling of nostalgia. Memories of the time they had spent together came flooding back, from late nights discussing work, to awkward smiles when they first fell in love, and even the lingering pain of having to part ways. Even though he had made a new start with Abby, deep down inside, Devon still couldn't deny the special influence Amanda had left on his heart. Nate also quickly heard about Amanda. He has always been a calm and rational person at work, but sometimes his emotions overwhelm him in his personal life. To Nate, Amanda is a symbol of intelligence and determination, a person who has never hesitated to confront forces stronger than himself, ready to protect the truth to the end. Amanda's return could mean many changes ahead, especially in the context of the relationship between him, Devon and Lily having just been mended after many storms. Nate understands that any change related to Amanda could make things more complicated, especially when it involves new underground forces. Lily, with her sharp instincts as a businesswoman, also immediately felt the wave of instability from Amanda's return. There was a time when Lily considered Amanda a close friend, even sharing with her many secrets about the company and family. However, in a world as ambitious and alluring as Genoa City, no one can maintain a pure friendship forever, especially when business relationships always have the potential to conflict with interest. Lily wonders if Amanda's return is simply to rekindle old friendships, or if there are bigger plans behind it. In a short time, the information is updated more clearly. Amanda is working for a mysterious client who holds a lot of power in the financial and legal world. People speculate about a series of names, from media tycoons to international investors, but in the end, the facts all lead to Aristotle Dumas, a character whose true identity and motives are still debated throughout the city. Amanda becoming Dumas' lawyer immediately becomes a hot topic in the business and legal world. No one knows who else besides Dumas is behind it, but the name alone is enough to make anyone wary. Amanda kept the information about the contract with Dumas a secret, strictly adhering to professional confidentiality rules. However, those who knew her well realized that Amanda's return was not only to reunite with old friends, but also to carry out a great mission that could change the entire power situation in Genoa City. The coldness and decisiveness in each of her steps made many people rethink Amanda's true position in the larger picture that Dumas was painting. For Devon, the first thing he did was to contact Amanda directly, both to confirm the information and to try to find out more about her true purpose. That meeting not only brought back many old emotions but also opened up many new questions. Devon was both happy and worried, happy that his old friend had returned, worried because he did not know what Amanda would bring to him, his family and his work this time. The trust between the two of them was once great, but the world has changed a lot. Devon knows that just one wrong decision can make everything collapse in the blink of an eye. Nate was more cautious. He approached Amanda with a skeptical look, always trying to analyze every expression, every small detail in her actions to guess Dumas's goals. With his experience in the business world, Nate understood that any relationship with Dumas was potentially risky, even dangerous to both his reputation and the safety of himself and his family. He proactively discussed with Lily, hoping to find a strategy to deal with any changes from Amanda and Dumas. Lily chose a gentler approach. She sought out Amanda, hoping to reconnect with her old friendship, while also tactfully asking about the plan behind her return. Lily knew that, to protect the company and her family, she had to constantly update information, keeping herself proactive in the face of any changes.